Today, we're doing something a little bit different. We're going to sit down with a fascinating book called Holland in America by Renee C. Linde. But here's the twist. Instead of interviewing the author, we're going to put our questions directly to the book itself. Every single idea, every quote you're about to see comes straight from its pages. Think of this as a conversation with the text itself. All right, book, let's dive right in. Let's start with the central question that really gets this whole investigation going. Seems like a simple question, right? Well, the book's answer is that it's anything but simple. In fact, its entire argument is that the label Dutch American doesn't describe one story. Nope, it describes two totally separate and often clashing histories. And when you see it laid out like this, the contrast is just wow. On one side, you've got corporate employees from 1624, the ones who built New Amsterdam. Then over 200 years later, you get this completely different group, religious dissidents who created their own little worlds out in the Midwest. The book makes it crystal clear. These two groups have almost nothing in common besides the name. So let's dig into that first group, shall we? These were the folks who showed up not looking for religious freedom, but as employees of the Dutch West India Company. Their job was to build a city that would eventually become New York. And this quote just nails it. It perfectly captures what they were all about. The book points out that for the folks in charge, things like pluralism and tolerance weren't some high-minded moral ideals. They were just good business. To make money, you needed workers, you needed traders, you needed taxpayers, and you didn't really care what they believed. Profit, not piety, is what built New Amsterdam. So where do we see their influence today? Well, the book shows us that it's kind of hidden in plain sight, right there in our language. The Dutch word for a supervisor, baas, got absorbed directly into American English. It's a little linguistic fossil from a purely commercial relationship. And here's another fantastic example from the book. You know the front steps of a city townhouse? That raised entryway? The Dutch called it a stoop. Well, it became the American stoop, a defining feature of New York architecture and even its social life. It's literally a piece of their world that we build right into ours. And of course, there's the koekje, which means little cake. And yup, you guessed it, that became the American cookie. What all these examples show is that this first group, they didn't stay separate. They assimilated. They dissolved into the culture, becoming this invisible part of the American mainstream. They left behind these little traces we use every single day without even thinking about it. Okay, now let's fast forward more than 200 years. We're going to turn to that second migration. They showed up with a completely different mission, and they tell a totally different story. For this group, the goal was the exact opposite of the first one. They weren't trying to build some open, pluralistic trading hub. No way. They were running from persecution, and they were trying to build a fortress for their faith. Their main driver wasn't profit, it was purity. And the way they thought they'd get that was through total, deliberate isolation. The author has a name for their specific strategy, the colony model. They intentionally said no thanks to the East Coast. They went way out into the isolated farmlands of the Midwest and built what the book calls a theological perimeter. They essentially created their own world with their own schools, their own churches, their own businesses, all designed to keep the secular American world out. So you see the crucial point, right? It's all about how these two groups approached their new home. One decided to dissolve into it. The other chose to build walls against it. Two migrations, two completely opposite destinies. This table from the book just lays it all out so perfectly. You have New Amsterdam in 1624, outward-facing, secular, using pluralism for profits, and in the end, dissolving into the mainstream. And then you have the colony in 1847, inward-facing, theological, using separation for purity, and enduring as its own unique subculture for centuries. Okay, so why does any of this matter today? I mean, these are stories from centuries ago. Well, the book argues that the legacies of both groups aren't just artifacts of the past. They are powerful structural forces that are very much alive in modern America. And this is where it all clicks into place. That legacy from the first corporate migration, it forms the very DNA of Wall Street, of American commercial law. And the legacy of that second insulated group? Well, you can draw a direct line from them to the huge network of private Christian schools, and you can see their influence as a major pillar of the political religious right. Two totally different migrations, leaving behind two incredibly powerful and often invisible modern legacies. The book closes with this incredible metaphor. I mean, what a powerful way to put it.
These histories, these legacies, are the floorboards beneath our feet. They're structural, they're holding everything up, and most of the time, we have no idea we're even standing on them.
And that leaves us with one final big question to think about. Because once you start looking for these hidden structures, these invisible floorboards, you kind of start seeing them everywhere. So what are the ones shaping your world?